Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Economic Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, which is June 11th. I have been joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Fletcher, Ellison, Gordon, and Cunningham, which is a quorum of the committee. We have a consent agenda that includes item 10, which are liquor license approvals, and item 11, liquor license renewals. Item 12 are the gambling license renewals. Item 13 is a license settlement conference. The recommendations of a license settlement conference at Encore Karaoke and Sushi Lounge. Item 14 are business license operating conditions for Exchange Nightclub at 10 5th Street South. Item 15 are contract amendments with eligible providers for our employment and training services. That includes contracts with Achieve Minneapolis, American Indian OIC, Eastside Neighborhood Services, Emerge, Jewish Family and Children's Services, Life Track, and Project for Pride in Living. I will note that I am a board member of the Jewish Family Children's Services Board, in case anyone needed to know that, given that we're allocating money to them through our process today. And item number 16 is an appointment to the Workforce Development Board. I understand the person being appointed is here. Hi, come on up here. And item number 17 is setting a public hearing. If you wouldn't mind, would you introduce yourself to the committee and the television audience?
Yeah, my name is Micah Spieler.
And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Born and raised in Minneapolis. I work currently at Clockwork Interactive, which is over in Northeast Minneapolis. I'm the director of experience design there, so I lead a team of people solving sort of technology problems for both nonprofits and sort of large Fortune 500 companies.
Well, we're really grateful that you're willing to serve in this capacity and very impressed that you took the time to come down here today. We'll be approving your appointment shortly, but want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So that is the consent agenda. I am going to move the consent agenda unless there are any items anyone would like to pull. Seeing none, on the motion to approve the consent agenda, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We have a quasi-judicial hearing agenda, items 8 and 9. It has been notified to the city that the on-sale liquor license at El Nuevo Rodeo has been paid. Therefore, I'm going to move to delete that item from the agenda. Are there further comments or questions on that item? Seeing none, all in favor of removing it from the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll now conduct all of our public hearings, starting with a joint public hearing of the Cda Operating Committee. So I will call together the Cda Operating Committee and note that we have been joined by Commissioners Cano, Fletcher, Ellison, Gordon, and Cunningham, as myself as chair, which is a quorum of the committee. Now we are in session for the operating committee as well as the EDRS committee, and we'll move on to the public hearing for item number 1. Mr. Curtis, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, you have before you a request for preliminary and final approval for a bank-qualified bond of up to $1.25 million for Emerge Community Development. It's a nonprofit that works on skill building, employment, and economic opportunities for people. The funds are being requested for a subsidiary, Emerge Enterprises, which is also a nonprofit. Emerge Enterprises operates a mattress and battery recycling facility at 1179 15th Avenue Southeast. Its purpose is to help people that are exiting incarceration. The bonds will be purchased by Western Bank, and we have a representative here should you have any questions directly for Emerge.
Are there any questions for staff or Western Bank on item number 1? There are no questions. Thank you for your report. We'll open the item number 1, which is a public hearing giving preliminary and final approval, authorizing the issuance of $1.25 million in 501c3 bank qualified tax exempt revenue bonds. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodman, and I will move approval of this item.
Approval has been moved for item number 1. A vote in the affirmative will count as a vote for the Cda Operating Committee as well as the EDRS Committee. I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Ellison?
Aye.
Gordon? Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
Cunningham?
Aye.
Connell? Aye. Chair Goodman?
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
So that item is approved by the Cda Operating Committee as well as the EDRS Committee, and now we will adjourn the Operating Committee and move into our public hearing items for liquor licensing, starting with item number 2, which is Moxie Downtown. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Christina Steester, and I'm a lead license inspector assigned to liquor establishments in 1st and 2nd precincts. I'm presenting an application from Moxie Minneapolis Downtown, owned by Graves Downtown LLC. Moxie Minneapolis Downtown is located at 247 Chicago Avenue South in the 3rd Ward. The applicant is requesting an on-sale liquor general entertainment with Sunday sales license. Their hours of operation are Monday through Wednesday, 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., Thursday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. They have outdoor seating for 112 patrons and 12 patrons outdoor on the outdoor patio. On May 30th, 153 public hearing notices were sent to residents and property owners within 450 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Downtown East Neighborhood Organization, the Easttown Business Partnership, and Council Member Fletcher's office. We have received one comment from the community in support of the license. This liquor license will cover the 8th-floor, 141-room Moxie Minneapolis Downtown Hotel. The Licenses and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of an on-sale liquor general entertainment with Sunday sales license for Moxie Minneapolis Downtown.
Thank you, Ms. Deester. Thank you for your report today.
Thank you,
Are
ma'am.
there any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you. We'll open up the public hearing on item number 2, which is an on-sale liquor license with Sunday sales for Moxie Minneapolis Downtown. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. I am Alex Francis, Vice President of Operations for Graves Hospitality. I represent the management company that will be taking care of the hotel. Graves has been around since the 70s, started multiple brands, managed Graves 601, so our knowledge is quite profound and lengthy in this area. We have developed security plans, noise plans, management staffing that will make sure this is a smooth and beneficial operation for the neighborhood. I urge you all to come down. It's a beautiful hotel. It's a beautiful lobby. Urban retreat is the theme of it, so very Minnesotan.
Great, thank you for your testimony.
Well, thank you for having me.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. I'll note that we had a good conversation about this at the DM&A Land Use Committee meeting last night, including a lot of questions about some concerns about the overall development that were actually way outside of your purview or the purview of this liquor license. So thanks for gracefully handling that conversation, and I'm happy to move approval.
Approval has been moved of item number 2. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 3. Mr. Cottrell, welcome. No. Yes?
No.
No. Please
Thank you,
introduce
Madam-
yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Phil Cottrell, and I'm a license inspector assigned to the 4th Precinct. I'm presenting an application from Uda Pills Brewing, owned by Uda Pills Investments LLC, at 225 Thomas Avenue North, which is located in Ward 5. Their current license is an on-sale liquor, limited entertainment with Sunday sales, and with off-sale malt liquor. The applicant is requesting a permanent expansion of premises for an outdoor patio consisting of 60 seats on private property. There will be outdoor speakers on the patio with ambient level pre-recorded music ending by 10 p.m. each evening. There will be no change in the hours of operation, which are between noon and midnight daily, depending on the time of year. On May the 9th, 2019, public hearing notices were sent to residents and property owners within 300 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Harrison Neighborhood Association and Council Member Jeremiah Ellison. The business has also notified the wider community with various social media posts on Nextdoor, Twitter, and Facebook. We haven't received any comments from the community. There have been non-significant 311 or police calls that can be attributable to the business. The Licenses and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of a permanent expansion of premises for Uda Pills Brewing.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cotterill on item number 3? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 3, which is an expansion of premise for Uda Pills Brewing. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward. I have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
How many neighbors were actually notified within the 300 feet, and were they told that the outdoor cafe would be open till midnight?
As far as I understand from talking with the licensing, we have no neighbors within 300 feet.
Right.
And our hours in license, our expansion is till midnight. We've never stayed open that late. We would prefer our staff to be able to get home to their families earlier.
Okay, because I'm just a little concerned that there are people living on Vincent, Washburn, Chestnut, who are in the valley area, and having an outdoor beer garden at midnight could be potentially an issue for them, but they weren't noticed because they technically weren't in
Right,
300 feet.
we tried to resolve that by posting on social media, our website.
Yes, and I did see that, but it didn't say open till midnight. It said, come to our opening.
Yes, that's what we said, yes. Because we won't be open till midnight.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
No, I just came up to say that we're very excited about this. We've spent 4 years planning it, working through numerous agencies to be able to do something we think is very special, by able to have outdoor space along the creek and continue to expand our business, which is providing jobs on the north side. We are open 7 days a week currently because of the demand, and the activities in the parks drive a lot of traffic towards us with the bike routes, and we're very excited about hopefully the future realignment of the loose line trail down the railroad, if the park and other agencies can put that together. And I just wanted to, again, invite you there, if you haven't yet been there, to come and see our operation. I think we've built something very special in a part of town that a lot of people haven't discovered until we got there. So I'm open to any other questions.
Well, thank you. The two of us have discovered it because we both live within 2 blocks of your location.
Yes.
I'm right up the street from you. Are you going to be allowing dogs in your outdoor patio?
Dogs will be allowed in the outdoor space. They are not allowed indoors because of Department of Ag regulations. As a production brewery, we're covered by those instead of the city inspections.
Okay, great.
And then we have a very standard rule. If you're well-behaved, human or dog, you can be there. But if you're not, you need to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I did want to just make a note for staff that the location of Uda Pills is so unique because even though it is in Ward 5, and we're happy to have it in Ward 5. It's so close to Ward 7, and might even be, as far as the closest residential space might be the next ward over. So I'm happy to move approval of this item and look forward to Uda Pills expanding their outdoor patio. So thank you.
On the motion to approve, further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you for being here today. We'll then move on to item number 4. Mr. Ishmael, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Mohammed Ismail. I'm the lead license inspector assigned to 5th Precinct. I'm presenting today an application from SP Chief Ventures LLC doing business as Angie, located at 1320 West Lake Street in Ward 10. The applicant is requesting an on-sale liquor with Sunday sales with general entertainment. This space was formerly occupied by Cda Tavern. The business has indoor seating for 140 and outdoor patio for 40. The proposed hours are Sunday through Thursday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday, Saturday, 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. Notices were sent to residents and property owners within 600 feet of the premises. All multi-unit buildings were posted. Notices were also sent to Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association, Uptown Business Association, and Council President Lisa Bender. We have received one comments which supports the license for the new license. The License and Consumer Service Division recommends approval of an on-sale liquor with Sunday sales, general entertainment for Ange. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any questions for Mr. Ismail? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is an on-sale liquor license with Sunday sales for NG Restaurant. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward and state your name and address. Oh, all right, let's see. We have a few. We'll take you all, though. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Gene Suh. I'm the managing partner of SPG Ventures. We've had and managed multiple bar restaurants around Minneapolis over the last 10 years, Lindale Tap House, Hammer and Sickle, Aloha Poke. We're really excited about the space. I don't know if anyone was in there when it was formerly Cena, but it is a beautiful space, and we're really excited about the area. I've got Dustin House here as well.
I'm the general manager, president of in-store operations for all 3 locations in Uptown, the Fremont, Hammer and Sickle, and now moving forward with NG. And yeah, we are very excited to bring this concept to Uptown.
Great. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
We'll see who else wants to speak. Please, anyone else who'd like to speak, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Well, council members, my name is Brian Reek. I'm actually a resident 1008 Mildred Drive, just down in Richfield. Sometimes shows up as Minneapolis address, so I like to consider myself still a resident here.
We'll claim you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm Angelina Valancourt. I'm formerly a Minneapolis resident, but most importantly, I manage and operate Infinite Vapor. One of our locations is in Uptown.
We're located at 1400 Lagoon Avenue South, so actually about basically a block and a half away from where the company NG is looking to establish another bar and restaurant. Obviously, I think we're all aware to the Uptown area as being kind of a location and area for young people, much like myself or Angel, to go and have a night out, have a good time, have some fun. But at this point, we're not here to speak opposed or against any sort of liquor licensing or sales. We're all definitely a fan of inviting more businesses into that environment. However, we'd like to use this as an opportunity and a platform to express our concerns about the potential safety concerns and the human risk of inviting in some more of those type of entertainment environments that do procure heavy amounts of liquor. We are situated right between Cowboy Slim's bar as well as the Uptown Tavern, numerous other bars and restaurants around the area, and over the years I've personally been in charge of managing and operating at that store for about 5.5 years, and I would strongly and confidently say that the neighborhood as a whole has gotten a bit more unsafe over time, a bit more increase in both petty and violent crime, and I think just as recently as this weekend, there was a drive-by shooting that occurred just a block up the road from our store and a block away from where this establishment is looking to take hold, which is a very beautiful location. I've been there before, so I, of course, would love to see it there, but I would encourage you all to look at the very issues of just safety. The lack of police presence we feel like has been present in that neighborhood, in that part of town, the lack of security, and just coming up with a game plan to reinforce the safety for our citizens there as well as the people who work there. Obviously, managing a vapor shop, wouldn't expect us to probably step up and have anything to say about on-sale liquor license on Sunday, but we just have seen the type of individuals and characters that come into the neighborhood with those types of elements there. It's presented a number of security risks and problems for us in our location as well as many other businesses in the area. And we would just like to voice our concerns about the human cost and the safety of that. So,
well, thank you for being here today. And
Absolutely.
I'll just note the chair of the Public Safety Committee is here on this committee, and there is an open, I believe there's an open public comment period in Public Safety Committee meetings, where the police and other staff in that area are present, so you might want to consider participating in that as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks. Thank you for being here. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fletcher.
I'll move approval of this application.
Approval of item number 4, which is a on-sale liquor license at NG, is in front of us. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. And then we will move on to item number 5, Black Walnut Bakery. Mr. Ishmael.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. The next applicant is from, our application is from Black Walnut Bakery LLC, doing business as Black Walnut Bakery, located at 3157 Hennepin Avenue in Ward 10. The applicant is requesting an on-sale wine with stronger beer, no live entertainment. The business has an indoor seating for 40 and an outdoor patio, 20 seats. The proposed hours for this new business is 7 a.m. to midnight daily for the interior, and the outdoor patio hours will be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Daily. Notices were sent to residents and property owners within 600 feet of the premises. All multi-unit buildings were posted. Notices were also sent to South Uptown Neighborhood Association, the Uptown Business Association, and Council President Lisa Bender. We have received 5 responses, which all support the new license. The Licensing and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of an on-sale wine with strong beer, no live entertainment for Black Walnut Bakery. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, which is Black Walnut Bakery, an on-sale wine and strong beer license with no live entertainment. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Perhaps we should have the applicant speak first if they're here. If that's okay?
Hi, I'm Sarah Bachar. I'm the baker and owner of Black Walnut Bakery. Thank you for your time today. I am very excited for my bakery. It's been probably about 15 years in the making, and the opportunity is here. It's actually going to be a bakery and a cafe. We posted our hours till midnight, but we actually will probably be closed by 8 p.m. most every day of the week, maybe 7. It just depends on how we can. I am one owner and one baker, and I'm trying to put all these pieces together. There are many, but we are very excited about the opportunity to be here in Minneapolis, in Uptown. So
great. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you
for being here today. Okay, Nancy?
Yes.
Please feel free to step forward, state your name and address for the record.
So I'm Nancy Shilquist. I live at 3141 Hennepin. I'm the adjacent neighbor to the Black Walnut Bakery.
And I'm Keith Shilquist, and that's my location too.
Okay, so we are very excited about the bakery. I'm hoping she makes cinnamon scones for me. We are Uptown people, and we're very active in the community. And I come to you to represent the residents in the area, because we want to sleep at night, or we want to actually do some of our own stuff. We're worried about outside speakers for music that could be disruptive. So that's what we're bringing our concern to, and maybe we could talk about what that might look like, which we have no idea. We just know that if there's outside speakers, I won't necessarily have to put my speaker on at my house to dance a little out on the patio. So that's our only concern. All the neighbors are very happy, but we just don't want to get blasted out with music, that's all.
Okay. Well, the baker is here, and you could talk to her after the public hearing. And she can tell you what her plan is for music. She's not allowed to have live music.
Yeah, we know speakers can be exciting.
We're also concerned about the fact of having indoor music with wide doors open that would project out into the neighborhood, namely our house next door.
Well, everywhere around.
Yeah, welcome to Hennepin Avenue.
Everywhere there's residents,
Yeah, I've
so,
been there for 43 years, and I know the growth of it.
yeah.
So I would urge you to chat with the young lady who's the baker. She
Oh,
seems
what do
pretty
you know?
approachable. Because we're not going to take up the issue of music and speakers or doors open here. This is a question of whether or not they're going to get a liquor license with strong beer sales.
It doesn't include speakers.
We're not going to get involved in the decision with regarding speakers. Mr. Ishmael, did you have some comment on that?
Madam Chair, the Black Walnut Bakery requested no live entertainment, and they're not put in their business plan that they're going to have any speakers outside. And I believe Sarah or her consultant Jerry can attest to that, but there's no in the plans right now for outdoor speakers or no live entertainment.
Thank you for that clarification. So hopefully that clarifies to you there are no, that's.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Let's see, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Ellison.
I will move approval of this item.
Item number 5 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you all for being here today. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the tasting room. You had a very full agenda today.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. The next application is from JJ LLC, doing business as the tasting room located at 1434 West 31st Street in Ward 10. Tasting room currently has an on-sale wine with strong beer, limited entertainment. Their wine license was just approved last April. They are requesting to add a permanent expansion of premises for the sidewalk. The total seating for the sidewalk cafe will be 19 seats. There will be no live entertainment or an outdoor speakers for the sidewalk. The design plan for the sidewalk cafe has been approved by the City of Minneapolis Public Works Transportation Division. The hours of operation stays the same. Notices of public hearing were sent to residents and property owners within a 300 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to East Calhoun Community Organization, Uptown Business Association, and Council President Lisa Bender. We have not received any responses. A review of 311 calls and police calls found no significant issues concerning this establishment. The License and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of a sidewalk cafe license and an expansion for premises for the tasting room. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 6, which is the tasting room and expansion of premise for an on-sale wine with strong beer license and a sidewalk cafe. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Mr. Graves, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. We're here today excited about opening a very nice wine bar. I want you to all come down and visit us. We will not be making a lot of noise. In fact, most of our patrons might even be living in the building, so we're going to be very sensitive to the neighborhood. We're real excited about Ann Kim's restaurant next door. So we think the neighborhood, we're really excited about the Black Walnut. It's a fun neighborhood. We're excited to be there and appreciate your support.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fletcher.
I move approval of this item.
Approval of item 6 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to our remaining liquor public hearing. Mr. Ishmael.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. The next application is from Bread and Pickle LLC, doing business at Bread and Pickle, located at 4135 Westlake Harriet Parkway in Ward 13. Bread and Pickle currently has an on-sale wine with a strong beer, no live entertainment. They have been in this location since 2012. They are requesting to add a permanent expansion of premises for an outdoor area. Bread and Pickle has been granted approval by the Minneapolis Park Board to expand their food and beverage service to area include seating areas by the Harriet Bombshell. The hours of operation will stay the same. Notices were sent to residents and property owners within 300 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to East Harriet Neighborhood Association, Southwest Business Association, and Council Member Palmisano. We have not received any responses. A review of 311 calls and police calls found no significant issue concerning this establishment. License and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of permitted expansion of premises for bread and pickle. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 7, which is a permanent expansion of premise for bread and pickle. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ann Saxton. I'm with Bread and Pickle. I just wanted to add that we're also very excited, and I think the neighborhood is excited as well, to have a glass of wine in front of the bandshell. In addition to what Mohammed just said, we have hired additional staff to be our pickle patrol, and they will monitor the expanded area to make sure nothing's going out that's beer and wine and nothing is coming in that would be alcohol. We've also printed new signage that will also be posted, and we will work with the Park Patrol on bringing on additional support if needed.
Thank you, Ann. Thanks for being here today. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fletcher.
I'll move approval of this item as well.
Item number 7 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Our final public hearing is item number 8, which is a quasi-judicial public hearing. This is an issue regarding the sale of liquor with Sunday sales and the general entertainment license revocation at Addis Ababa Ethiopian Restaurant. Before we begin, I should note this is a quasi-judicial license hearing for which this committee is limited by law to hearing arguments from the parties to the matter, consisting of the city's regulatory staff and the license holder or the license holder's representative. This committee is prohibited from receiving any further evidence or additional testimony. The parties are required to limit their comments to arguments specifically addressing the evidence or testimony introduced before the administrative hearing officer, who previously conducted a full evidentiary hearing on this matter. The parties may not offer, and the committee may not consider, any new or additional evidence that is or not already part of the record developed by the evidentiary hearing. The committee has been provided with the record of the matter, including the report and recommendations of the administrative hearing officer. I will note this is a question of taxes paid to the state. Correct?
Madam Chair,
No,
if I might,
this is an
a bit
actual
of a
revocation?
unique. I'm sorry. This is a bit of a unique matter. There wasn't an underlying evidentiary hearing that took place, but it is very strictly limited, as you mentioned, to the question of outstanding delinquencies actually owed to the city, not to the state, and therefore, as Ms. Roberts will get into, I believe mostly outstanding administrative citations that have gone past their appeal period. And so the limited question is simply whether those delinquencies exist and whether they've been paid. I think Ms. Roberts may mention there are a number of other issues that are associated with this business, but regulatory staff and licensing staff can and will deal with those separately, and you are therefore quite limited in your determination here today, but I believe the license applicant is here and may address this matter as well, but Ms. Roberts is also prepared to address the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Fussy. Ms. Roberts, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Linda Roberts, Assistant Manager of Business Licensing, and I'm here to prepare on this agenda item for Addis Ababa Ethiopian Restaurant and Bar located at 2713 East Lake Street. Sorry, I missed some of your presentation because I was talking to the licensee. That this is our first opportunity to speak to him because he's been non-responsive. But the issue before you is for revocation of, as Attorney Joel Fussy just mentioned, of unpaid citations that are due to us and to the health department. The specific ordinance that we cited for the revocation is Minneapolis Code 25915 and 360-140 that requires all financial claims be paid before licenses are granted and or renewed. The citations were issued on April 3rd for a $200 ticket for indoor smoking. On April 7th, there was a ticket of $200 issued for criminal acts on alcohol premises. On April 7th, there was a $500 ticket issued for operating outside of the hours, as they were operating until 3:15 with alcohol when police were called to a fight to the establishment. On and it was in July of this last year that a reinspection fee was paid or issued to them from the health department for failure to allow an inspection at an establishment. These all have been noticed to the business through U.S. mail, all the tickets, and we sent a notice that said that we were going forward with revocation on May 14th. We sent that to them through U.S. mail, and this hearing process was sent to them on May 22nd through certified mail. Before that, we also attempted to reach the licensee through a license settlement conference, which they did not appear for.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Gordon.
Have they paid their delinquent fines?
To date, they have not paid. I did just talk to the licensee. They have an interest in paying. They are having financial trouble. I think that they're here if you want to speak to them. They're going to, I did say that I would like to talk to them about the details of the fees that are due and the ramifications of them, but they have not paid. They have not paid any of these financial obligations. And to date, they have not renewed their license. So their license will be delinquent come soon.
So they don't have an operating license if they don't renew it.
Their license was due in our office. They need to pay 30 days prior to it expiring, and it was due June 1st. And so they have an operating license until July, but they'll still have to pay that.
Okay, Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, so if we moved to revoke the license today, would that be effective the date it was, after it was approved by the council and signed by the mayor?
That would be correct.
So there would still be a little bit of a time frame for some flexibility because the council could choose to reevaluate that decision at the council meeting?
Yes, through the chair, Councilmember Goodman, that's correct.
Thank you.
That would be if they paid by the council meeting.
Well, correct. There'd have to be some definite circumstances that would cause the council to change the committee's recommendation, but yeah.
Okay. Is the applicant here? And if you'd like to come forward and speak to the fact that you haven't paid these fees and that you're about to have your license revoked if you don't.
No, I've just spoken. This is like my uncle. My name is Nancy. He's the only applicant. He's aware of it, and after we spoke with Ms. Roberts, his intent is to pay it. We just fell on some hard times at his place, and he hasn't been open many days. But his intention is to pay it if we're able to have time. We spoke with Ms. Roberts, and whatever issues that they're having, we do want to sit there and talk to them to rectify it because this is a family-owned business. They do want to continue to do business, and there are other options. If he doesn't continue to do the full liquor license, there may be an option that he would like to maybe just at least have his restaurant open as well. So he does apologize. We didn't come to the first meeting before it got brought to the council. He did not know that. At this time, that's what I thought we were coming for. But moving forward, I'm here to help him as much as I can, and we apologize.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's all I think. I'm kind of.
No. Nice.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fussy, given that we've heard from both the license management and as well as the applicant, we don't need to take any of the public testimony?
That's correct, as it's a quasi-judicial hearing. It's technically not open to the public, just the parties.
Okay, I will then go ahead and close the public hearing. Councilmember Gordon, did you want to say something? Otherwise, I'm happy to move forward.
Well, I think the appropriate thing to do is to move forward with the revocation at this time. I think there's lots of discussions that could occur. And it's very possible that they could come back and reapply later for another license to operate a restaurant there if they feel like they can. So just because we're revoking this license doesn't mean that you can't do anything at the property ever. But I think it's clear that that's the action that this committee should take at this time. So I'm going to move that forward.
Okay, on the motion to move the staff recommendation, which is the revocation of the license, Councilmember Ellison.
I just had a clarifying question. if they resolve this before the full council meeting, is there still an opportunity for them to sort of avoid this action? I agree that we should take this action today. Just wanted for my clarity and for the applicant's clarity.
Through the chair, Councilmember Ellison, yes, that is correct. If they pay before the full council meeting, we would definitely let the clerk's office know, and that would address that issue of the fees that are unpaid.
So even though
for that revocation.
Yeah. So even though the committee is going to be approving this today, it doesn't mean that they're out of options as far as paying and rectifying this.
That's correct.
Cool.
Although I do want to note that we seem to have glossed over the fact that they refused an inspection. We're in violation of the license as it pertains to a number of issues, and there probably will be action on some of these other issues should they pay. So this is something that has to be discussed with the applicant and thought through pretty clearly, because should they pay, they're still facing, 4 or 5 different being open past their hours, refusing a health inspection. One of them is smoking on the premises. That's what I heard you say. Those are the few I wrote down.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To clarify some of your statements, that we did talk to the licensee now, and I made a connection with the small business team with Zoe, that the ramifications of paying for alcohol violations mean that gives us cause for revocation later. Right. And so I think that as Councilmember Gordon was saying, that there's opportunities maybe of withdrawing the license, downgrading to a restaurant. Those might be good things for the applicant to consider, and those are things that we briefly talked about in the hall as they were here.
Okay. Councilmember Gordon.
Well, I just wanted to echo that. I didn't want to leave the impression that just paying the fines would satisfy everybody, because there are larger concerns and issues. But obviously, if the fines are paid, that will give a pause for people to reflect on what happens and give the opportunity for the council to do something. But I didn't want to give the impression that meant we'd be thinking everything was totally fine, because there are some of these other circumstances going on.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Further comments or questions on the motion to approve the staff recommendation? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved, which brings us to our last remaining item on the agenda, which is the 2019 health inspection study. Micah, I do want to note half the people on the committee have already heard this. So I would urge you to be relatively brief. We do not intend to take any action from the report today, only to ask you and your team to continue to determine if there are some recommendations you'd like to make to us, rather than us telling you what recommendations to make.
Great. Madam Chair, thank you very much for that instruction. For the record, Micah Intermel, the city's budget director. In the interest of brevity, I'll just introduce, I do want to point out that though this funding for the study and direction for the study went through the city's budget office, it absolutely would not have been possible without the strong engagement from the health department, specifically environmental health led by Dan Huff, and the small business team out of CPED. Just needs to be said. With that, I'll invite Matt Rizak up to share both the high-level findings for you, as well as we've got some summary recommendations at the end for future consideration.
Good afternoon.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thanks for the chance to be with you. I'm Matt Rizak, and over there is my colleague Kate Noble, and we are the consultants who've been working with the team from the city over the last few months to explore this issue of health regulation in the city of Minneapolis. I'll try to give the quick version of this presentation, since the full version was given yesterday, and feel free to scoot me along if I need to go faster. I'll go faster as I can. I do want to say that the study was prompted by 3 basic interrelated concerns: the potential for overregulation of businesses in Minneapolis, concerns about the right size of Minneapolis environmental health, and the gap between expenses and revenues that are attributable to MEH, also known as recovery ratios. And so our intent with the study was to help inform council's discernment about whether to increase, decrease, or maintain the level of health regulatory activity that occurs in Minneapolis. The methodology that we used, you can read about in the report, but basically we reviewed a bunch of documents, including federal guidelines, state statutes, local ordinances. We talked to all kinds of people. We included 9 other jurisdictions in the study that included St. Paul, St. Cloud, Bloomington, Richfield, Brooklyn Park, Hennepin County, Multnomah County, Portland, King County, Seattle, Denver, and Kansas City. And as you do oftentimes, we found out that it was a complex issue, and even though this was one of my favorite slides of all time, I'm not going to go into it for the sake of brevity, but our hope is that the study would provide the kind of information that would help you identify solutions that get at the core underneath the iceberg and not just be reactive to the problems that are on the surface. One of the key findings that we had was, or the overall key finding, I mean, the thing that I really hope that you would take away is that Minneapolis environmental health inspection levels really are on par with other jurisdictions. There's a lot of different ways that we arrived at that. One of them had to do with how the frequency of routine inspections that MEH conducts for businesses. And they do the minimum frequency of routine inspections that are allowed by the state, which is every 12 months for high-risk facilities, every 18 months for medium risk, and 24 months for low-risk facilities. Most jurisdictions in Minnesota follow this same frequency pattern, but some do inspect more. And there are national cities such as Seattle, Denver, and Kansas City who all inspect more often. In fact, Kansas City inspects their high-risk facilities 4 times a year, not just 1 time a year. Another way to gauge if MEH is on par is with the frequency of re-inspections. So how often does an inspection yield the result where an inspector felt like they needed to go back to a facility within a short period of time? And in Minneapolis, re-inspections happen about 36% of the time during or deemed needed 36% of the time after an inspection, and for most jurisdictions is a little bit higher than that at 39%. Staffing levels. MEH's staffing levels are on par with other jurisdictions. The numbers fell off of this graph, but the high level of Kansas City is they had 753 inspections per inspector that happened in 2018. The low level, which is a combination of Minnesota Department of Agriculture and Minnesota Department of Health, who inspects St. Paul, had 162 inspections per inspector. Minneapolis was at 311 inspections per inspector, which is a bit less than the average of 390, but you can see more than most local jurisdictions. There are other ways that we tried to gauge, is this reasonable body of work basically relevant to other jurisdictions, and they are in the report. But those were a couple of the high-level ones that really give a snapshot of, at a 30,000-foot level, what Minneapolis does is pretty much on par with other jurisdictions, both locally and across the country. There were a couple places where Minneapolis is an outlier in terms of regulatory activity. One of them is that Minneapolis, let's see, it has to do with the number of violations that are called per inspection. And so when an inspector finds something out of compliance during an inspection, they cite it as a violation and include it on the inspection report, which is known as calling a violation. Inspectors can call either critical or non-critical violations depending on the threat level of the violation that's in question. And Minneapolis called the most violations in 2018 compared to other jurisdictions in the study, and also called the highest percentage of non-critical violations. One piece of context that I think is important to point out is that MDA, Minnesota Department of Agriculture, had the highest, and Minnesota Department of Health had the 3rd highest in terms of violations called per inspection. And we think that's important because the Health Department asserts that they're required by their delegation agreement with these state departments to call non-critical violations. And so it could be that given that Minneapolis has a cornerstone role in the state, that they receive additional oversight from these state agencies that leads them to be more strict in calling violations. But that's just a speculation. The report
Is there a list in the report of the difference between critical and non-critical violations?
Yep. Yes, there is. Another key finding that illustrates how Minneapolis is an outlier is in the amount of time it takes to complete an inspection report after inspection is done. This really stood out to us. So on average, it takes about as long to input data as it does to complete an inspection, which is about 90 minutes for each. And there are others who do all of it in 90 minutes. And so while most jurisdictions have named data entry inefficiency as a problem that they want to work on, all the major metro areas have a more efficient system. And we looked into it, and the problem is clearly not that the inspectors are slow typers or they're twiddling their thumbs or something like that, but there's really a mismatch between how the ELMS enterprise data system is configured and the data requirements that are needed to do the public health tracking. And so the end result is that it's very hard to use data to drive learning and innovation for health inspections in Minneapolis because of this incongruence. And what this I guess the thing I want to point out again from a big picture level is that this is a place where you have a larger municipal structure that's affecting health regulatory practices in a significant way. And another way that this plays out is in business licensing structure. So our key finding on business licensing the fee schedule is that it's longer, more detailed, less integrated, and less user-friendly than many other jurisdictions. And one interviewee who's has spent her whole career in this area said that she can't figure it out at all. That's just confusing to her. And so there's a long section in the report that details this issue, but basically it makes everyone's job harder to have a fee schedule that's set up this way, both businesses in the city and city staff too. And like with data tracking, most jurisdictions have identified this as a problem, and also like with data tracking, many of the other jurisdictions are farther along than Minneapolis is so far in adjusting this one. A potential consequence for health regulations is that this long and confusing fee structure would appear to potentially feed the perception that the health department is overly complicated and comes with many separate fees, all of which make it harder to do business. And I want to say it was worth noting and a little bit surprising when the small business team interviewed several businesses for this study. I was, frankly, when we heard the report back from them, I was ready to hear a long laundry list of problems, things that they didn't like. And there was actually people were appreciative and said, wow, they're not scary. We thought the inspectors would be scary, they would be unhelpful, they'd be trying to reprimand us, but actually they have a very education approach and they provide lots of resources and stuff that we find helpful. So I thought that was worth noting. And there's some cases where MEH seems to be trying to go the extra mile to help businesses, such as with short-term events. So a short-term event is when a food and beverage service establishment operates for no more than 10 total days, and it's in conjunction with like a fair, community celebration, carnivals, circuses, promotional food product events, sports events, and other special events. And so Minneapolis inspects the second most of these short-term events of any jurisdiction, although oddly, for reasons we didn't have time to get into, it's about half of what Kansas City does. So Kansas City goes crazy about inspecting short-term events.
And Denver doesn't do any.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So there's got to be a happy medium somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Denver is a similarly situated city to us in many, many ways, yet they only have 23 and we have 703. Why is that?
Right, exactly. That's a good question. So the small business team performed an additional study that sort of complemented this study. And Zoe, I'd invite you if you wanted to come up and speak to that.
No. You are already going on 10 minutes and
Okay.
you have 15 for the entire presentation.
Okay,
So
sure.
I can try to keep going.
Sure, great. So one thing we found is that there may be an unintended consequence of using short-term event permits as sort of a pro-business workaround to certain restrictions. And so, for instance, when the instance that's most familiar to me is if a business wants to grill outside and they want to do that on a regular basis, they would need some sort of a short-term event application process for each one of those, and that's a workaround from having to build like an outdoor facility, basically. And so it can really increase the incidence of those. Let's see. A final way that I want to point out where Minneapolis is somewhat of an outlier has to do with the plan review process. And so the plan review process requires many city departments to review plans and also includes the state in electrical plan review. And the plan review process is often considered burdensome to business owners because it involves navigating the requirements of all these different departments who don't always communicate or coordinate well. And so the frustration is amplified because an unapproved plan review can halt business activity or keep a place from being able to open up. And so in the report, we list a few things that we think the city could do to streamline the plan review process. I'll skip over my gratuitous revisiting of the iceberg and get right into the recommendations slide. So this is just a sampling of the recommendations that are in the report. This isn't meant to replace your reading of the full slate of recommendations, but top level, the study finds that maintaining most of the Minneapolis environmental health practices would be in congruence with other jurisdictions, improving the licensing and fee structure, addressing this incongruency between the way that ELMS is configured and health regulation data, and changing how these sort of pain points of short-term inspections and plan review happens. We think there are things that you all could do to streamline those. To the question of whether to increase, decrease, or maintain the level of health regulatory activity that occurs, it seems to us that if you were to decrease it now, you would end up with an already stretched inspection crew feeling somewhat overwhelmed to accomplish what is a standard body of work compared to other jurisdictions. But if these process improvements or others like it are made to increase efficiency, that would give you more options over time. So one option could be to reduce staffing. One would be to increase outreach to immigrant business owners. One would be to do more regulatory activity like Kansas City, Seattle, and Denver do. And a fourth would be to just position yourself for unknown new requirements. For instance, if Minnesota becomes part of the cannabis economy, that would introduce new regulatory requirements that would theoretically need more staffing. So with that, I'll do my best to stand for questions. Thank you.
Okay. So one thing I heard from the members of the committee that serve on the Public Health Committee is that there was a long conversation yesterday with regard to ELMS and the health regulation and consistencies. We're not going to take that up here because they've already had a conversation about that. I do think, though, because we have Zoe and the small business team, we're in a really unique position to have them use their learned experience through working with small businesses to attack some of these regulatory pain points, because they are experts in hearing what businesses have to say. I had a briefing about halfway through the study, and I took the opportunity to call a restaurant owner in my ward, someone who got a license today actually, and has about 8 other licenses. And what they said was, we have no issue with the health inspections. That's quick and efficient, and we're used to it. We're a good business, and we don't get in any trouble. But these events things are killing us. And we've got to swab every beer tab, and they're checking to see if the ice water is cold. And I think that there's this feeling that the events are really a place where there's a pain problem. But the general opinion about the health department's inspection was very positive. And it sounds like that's very consistent with your report.
Yes, very much so.
That the everyday inspections are not an issue, but there's a little overzealousness on some of the events, partially because it's a workaround for another problem. So if we can get at the regulatory pain points through plan review and the short-term event inspections, it might solve some of the other issues. And so as Councilmember Gordon and I spoke this morning, I think that rather than us giving the experts direction, would be to accept this report and ask staff to make a determination based on their professional experience of what would be the next steps. From Reg Services point of view, I'll just speak for myself, anyone else can jump in, addressing the regulatory pain points in conjunction with the small business team seems to be the way to get the greatest change to solve some of the other problems. But I'm certainly open to anything anyone wants to do. I'm also very sensitive to not putting a ton more work on our already busy staff by just letting them move forward in their process to determine what happens next, rather than put together a bunch of timelines with a bunch of deliverables based on what we know. I attempted to read the report this morning. It's, I stopped at page 28 or something like that. It's even more than that. So I haven't absorbed it, and I'm known for reading things, so I think that we should leave the professional staff to do their job. And we very much appreciate all the work you've done so far. Councilmember Gordon.
I basically agree. I think it's valuable to read the report, though. I really appreciate it, and the recommendations. And all the recommendations weren't even talked about today. And there are some that clearly fall in the purview of one department. In fact, I think the short-term recommendations are all about health inspections, what to do about the non-critical issues, and maybe streamlining note-taking or something like that. And I think those are things that health department's already willing and eager to go forward on. I think the discussion at the Public Health Committee about ELMS and the software was really me going on a rant. So I'm not sure how much we had a deep discussion about it, but I've heard a lot about how ELMS wouldn't work, and we kept saying, oh, this is just the first year, we'll fix the tweaks, this is just the second year, we're going to get this refined, so it's discouraging to find out that we're still there. But that, of course, is interdepartmental, because then we have IT, and they're going to have to work on that. This plan development review process, it's kind of a new thing to hear. It's created so many problems, and that will be interesting to see how we deal with that, because that's very interdepartmental, and we'll need some coordinator officer, business team people to get creative around that, but that's interesting too. So I think it makes sense that staff should review these, and they should come back on what recommendations they think they could follow up on and how they should do that. I'm a little nervous about not giving more direction and a timeline, but I'm replacing that with this speech. So I think there's an expectation from all of us up here that we're going to hear about this pretty soon in the next few months. That people are going to come back in their departments, and maybe even we'll get a meeting where business licensing sits down with health inspection, sits down with economic development, and they start to think about what are the things we can own together and how do we have to do this together, and can come back to us and we can move forward. So,
Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. I'll just note that this, I'm interested to see if I am in a committee meeting this cycle that doesn't identify some significant way that IT is holding back the operations of the things that we're trying to do. So in Public Works today, we did give a staff direction around improving some of the GIS data for 311 reporting related to snow removal. If you need similar support in public health to sort of get everybody working together and solving some of the technical problems that are holding us back, certainly do come to us for that. I'm not going to do it today on the fly, but I do want to make sure that ELMS is not a barrier to us being able to do efficient work. So thank you.
So I'm glad that Councilmember Gordon said what he did about ELMS. I would have probably been on that bandwagon too. In all my years here, I've never heard anything positive about it, and so, but it's beyond my pay grade to understand how it works too. I do think it's not good that it seems like the inspectors are being blamed for the amount of time it takes to fill out a report, and so then there's this feeling that they're not doing a good job when really there's something standing in the way. So it is a nut that has to be cracked, and maybe it's something for the Enterprise Committee to discuss, toss something to Councilmember Palmisano, she will jump on it. So that might be something. I do want to note, though, that it's been my experience that the small business team, CPED business development, business licensing want to get to yes. Their whole thing is about helping businesses succeed. And there's been a real focus on small businesses, so I very much trust that our professional staff can do their job. And if we have a policy decision we need to figure out, we should do that. But this is an update on our policy of making sure that people of all ages, religions, races in our community can succeed in business. And then it moves on to our staff to figure out what that means and how that works. And so I feel really good about the work that's happened, and I think the team that's working on it is really great. I also don't love the idea of blaming staff. When we hear from the public, we have to figure out what the problem is in terms of them doing their jobs, and figure out what we can do to support that. Councilmember Gordon?
I just wanted to make one more comment. How great it is to hear that we talked to small businesses and they actually came back saying that our inspectors were helpful. They weren't scary. They were educational and problem solving. I think that actually represents a pretty significant culture shift from 10 years ago, and it's pretty significant. And that's something I think that's been policy-wide we've been trying to do, and say, well, how can we support some of these folks and help everybody be more successful? And I just think it was it's affirming to hear that coming back from an outside consultant and also from up here, and so I wanted to acknowledge that.
So thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation and for the work on this report, as well as a strong thank you to all of our staff across all the different departments. I note the Director of Health, Gretchen Musicant, is here. Our CPED Executive Director, David Frank, is here as well. And so it's important that you guys have seen the report and heard the conversation and participated. I'm going to move to receive and file the findings and recommendations of the health inspection study. Micah, thank you very much for all of your work. All in favor of the receive and file signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved. And then I just want to clarify that the appointment of the Director of Regulatory Services will involve setting a public hearing for June 25th. So I want to just make sure, since Irene wasn't positive, that we vote to set that public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That public hearing has been set. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.